Hey, happy Monday. Happy Monday, guys. Had to think about that. If you are on here, please hit that like button, tag anybody on this discussion, share it with someone that you think may find it interesting. I'm excited about today's discussion. I'm here really to listen and learn. This topic of Christian nationalism, I heard it for the first time a couple of months ago. And, I've been doing my research on and off, just privately, just trying to gain understanding about what this is about. And one day I had the opportunity to hear someone speak on this and give a great lecture and just provide different insight of not only what this movement is, what it could potentially mean, especially for Black America. And so I'm excited to have a special guest come on today to talk about Christian nationalism, what it is, the history of it, and what it could mean just in the upcoming years for America. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on, and then we're going to have a good discussion.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's Monday.
It's Monday. Yeah, right. Well, again, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time on your, I'm sure, busy Monday evening to talk about this topic. When I first had the opportunity to hear you speak about it, it was the first time I really started to kind of connect the dots, because I'd read about it off and on, but really had a hard time trying to make sense of it. So just, I guess, to get right into things. First, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, just let them know a little bit about yourself before we get right into the questions.
My name's Kent. I speak at my church occasionally, do quite a bit of reading on politics. My area of expertise is in technology, actually.
Okay.
A couple of degrees in electrical engineering, and do things with autonomous cars, that kind of stuff. And second interest happens to be politics, Black awareness, and how we fit into society, or how society doesn't want us to fit in.
Okay.
Like I said, do a lot of reading, especially when it comes time when we're talking about elections and people start talking about different agendas and that kind of thing. It's important to be knowledgeable and aware of what the terms people are using and what they're talking about and the history behind what they're talking about. Okay.
No, I could not agree more. Well, I know, politics, that's always one of those touchy subjects. But, this is your time to share. And then you guys, if we do have enough time and if there's questions, time permits, we'll have a time to maybe open up the call lines. But we'll just see how the interview goes. So again, guys, if you're joining, hit the like button, show support to the show. As always, Cash App, Venmo, Shay Sade, and then as always, I'll be sure to read and acknowledge all super chats. So first question I have for you is, what are the origins of Christian nationalism?
Christian nationalism is a broad term, and the origins, at least in the United States, they started in the 17, 1800s, but it really became something of a talking point or a platform around 1944 with a guy named Gerald L.K. Smith, who ran against FDR in 1944. Okay. He ran on what was called the America's First ticket. He was a preacher, a politician, and a Nazi sympathizer.
Okay.
And he specifically said that in one of his speeches, we must keep control of our own money and our own blood. In other words, we must remain true to the Declaration of Independence. That is nationalism. We believe that the spiritual symbol of our statesmanship is the cross, which is indeed the symbol of Christianity. So what he did was, all of a sudden, he grabs all this stuff and he rolls it up in a fake doctrine he calls Christianity. Mm-hmm. So Christian nationalism is neither Christian nor nationalistic or patriotic. And I say that because if you're a Christian, you're supposed to love your brother, but Christian nationalism is all about divisiveness and all about white nationalism and not necessarily Christian nationalism.
Okay.
And mm-hmm. They, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and some of the other ultra right-wing Republicans throw around the term Christian nationalism. Mm-hmm. And they say that, United States is a Christian nation. But I'll ask you, okay, Christian nation means what? There are, I forget how many thousands of different variants of Christianity in the world. So what version of Christianity are they talking about? Are they talking about evangelical Christians? Are they talking about Catholicism? What are they actually talking about? Mm-hmm. And to say that this is a Christian nation goes directly against what our Constitution states, which is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Right there, it says we're a secular nation. We're not a Christian nation. In the First Amendment to the Constitution, it specifically says separation of church and state.
Okay.
But to go further, if you're a Christian, Jesus talked about the separation of church and state. He said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto the Lord's, which is the Lord's, which means that he's saying what you got to do for the government and your responsibility to the government is to the government, and your responsibility for Christianity or the Lord's work is different. And these people want to blend their politics and religion. And what they really want to do is they want their religion to reflect their politics, not their politics reflect their religion. And what that means, it's a subtle point, but if you're a Christian and you believe in helping people and you believe that all people are equal, then your politics should reflect that. But what they want is they want to have their ultra conservative political stance where they're talking about, you know, we don't believe in wokeness. We don't want to teach about slavery. We don't want to teach about segregation. We don't want to talk about the Holocaust. We don't want to talk about the Japanese internment camps. And what they want to do is they want their religion, they now want their religion to reflect their politics. So their politics are divisive. So their version of Christianity is divisive.
Okay. So you're saying, so you were saying that they're saying it as if it's like a spiritual movement or religious movement, but literally it's more of a political movement.
Absolutely.
And they're just trying to use Christian, I don't even know if it's Christian principles, but maybe Christian language.
They want to wrap themselves in a fake Christian doctrine.
Okay.
Look, for example, if you look at January 6th, the insurgents at the Capitol, you had people carrying crosses, but they were beating policemen. They were wrapped in a flag and beating policemen with flagpoles. So, and these people say that they were Christian nationalists, some of them. So how do you reconcile the fact that you're trying to overthrow the government, you're beating people, but you're calling yourself Christian and patriotic?
Oh, because you're saying based upon, is it Romans? I mean, there's scriptures that literally talk about, you know, having respect for authority, and rebellion. The spirit of rebellion is largely condemned in the Bible. So you're saying if you are essentially rebelling in that way and you are going against Christian principles, but you're saying you're Christian, then it's like obviously it's not a movement,
and it's definitely not patriotic.
Okay.
Because a lot of the things they say go directly against the Constitution, saying that we're a Christian nation and that there's no separation of church and state. How can that be when the Bible says separation of church and state and the Constitution says separation of church and state? Okay. When you mingle, so what these people really want is a theocracy.
Okay.
They don't want anything other than a Christian version of the Taliban, where they want to enforce whatever beliefs they have on everybody else.
Okay. I was actually sent this. It was probably like a 2-minute video that I saw earlier today. I just posted, but it was, I guess there was like a poll of or a survey done of 6,000 Americans, and they were basically looking at the rise of Christian nationalism. And in them, they had asked a few questions, and I think one of them was like, what percentage of you believes that it is, as Christians, like it's God's destiny for them to rule and be in control of America specifically. And that was a pretty foundational belief was that Christians were supposed to reign and rule in America. It was their right to do so. And another one I think that was mentioned in that whole survey was that Christian ethics and European ethics essentially were married, right? That it was God's gift to the European culture, that this was their nation. It was, I don't know, it was just really interesting. It was just really interesting. I'd have to go.
No, I read some of it, but like you said, it got off the rails real quick.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of what people wanted, they, you know, in the end, they said that they wanted a Christian nation, like you said, and that it was God said that they were okay to rule. But it falls into that same realm, you know, Christian nationalists. Then you've got the political evangelicals who are now running from Donald Trump in droves, but for 4.5, 5 years, they had him speaking on their platform saying, you know, this is our guy. He was put into the presidency and it was ordained by God.
Okay. Okay. No,
but how, you know, once again, as a Christian, how do you reconcile, and it's not just Donald Trump, how do you reconcile support of men who are lack of better words, unethical and amoral? How do you support them? Now, granted, the Bible, Paul was a flawed apostle, and he was in jail for what we would consider manslaughter, because he rose up against he was part of the movement in the Bible that was anti Jesus initially. But the one thing that's clear about the flawed men that are used by God in the Bible is those men have an epiphany and they repent and understand what their flaws were and try to correct and move forward. The men that these political evangelicals are holding up are not only flawed men, they don't care that they're flawed. They put their flaws forward and continue to do the things that they've always done.
Okay, so you're saying there's no, because it's one thing to be a human and to have flaws and imperfections and to try to own and grow and be repentant. And it's another thing to actively know that you're engaging in some form of wrongdoing or sin, and then to continue to do it and make excuses for it. And that's
there's no contrition.
Okay.
Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He hasn't, here's an example. When you had the Central Park Five, the young men that were wrongly convicted in New York, Donald Trump, when he was a developer in New York before he was a politician, called for the execution of these 5 men, denigrated them, and then when they finally were cleared by DNA evidence, he was completely silent and never said, I was wrong about those 5 young men.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was no I can't speak today. There was no recognizing that what he said was a mistake or wrong or whatever. He just, it is what it is.
Okay. So that's why you were saying a few minutes ago, you said it's not Christian because it doesn't actually live out Christian values, and it's not patriotic because it's not open to representing all Americans.
Exactly.
Okay. No. That makes sense. So another question I have for you is, how do you respond to those who say that Christianity is the white man's religion and that Christian nationalism is natural for white people?
Christianity is a white man's religion. That's interesting because most of the people in the Bible weren't white, and the oldest sects of Christians are in Egypt and in Ethiopia.
Yeah, I'm
so,
aware of that.
so to say Christianity is a white man's religion when some of the earliest roots of Christianity can be traced back to Africa sort of flies in the face of that comment.
I mean,
but because if you read, Christianity doesn't have a color in terms of, it says love your brother like you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say love your white brother. It doesn't say love your black brother. It says love your brother. But Christian nationalism, once again, is different. That is definitely tailored toward racist white folks. That's what it is.
Right. I'm sorry, I think you cut out for a second. Okay, sorry, I was having a spotty connection for a second, but I think.
And I saw a comment that said, Biden called us the N-word and super predators. I don't remember Joe Biden using the term super predator. And if he did use those terms, I didn't say I was a Biden supporter. So so somebody is making a mistake assuming that since I talk against Christian nationalism, I happen to like Joe Biden. And those don't have to be one and the same. I could not like any political party, which my stance is I don't particularly care for any of them.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you.
But I will say that I care for right-wing Republicans a whole lot less, because they're the ones that are in denial, that won't admit that in America we had apartheid for 100 years. They don't want, they call what happened to the Native American Trail of Tears during Andrew Jackson, but what it was a genocide. They want to call what was done to the Japanese an internment camp, and what it was a concentration camp. So until you call it what it was, you've never had an honest discussion about what it was.
Okay. No, that's a fair point. I think the general gaslighting that we see coming from, I think, the mainstream media in general and politicians, you're hard pressed to find any individual that 100% agrees with any politician, at least that I know. I think in most instances, as people just start to get behind ideas, or they may get behind, particular issues that they find really important. But it's like, you're hard pressed to find a politician where it's just like, oh yeah, they're completely moral and everything they do I agree with.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone. I could be wrong. Maybe there's somebody in the comments who does, but I don't know.
I don't know of a whole lot.
I think a lot of people right now are just like, okay, pick your poison, or what to me is more in alignment with my value, So, okay, so that makes sense. So you're saying, which is true. I'm actually doing study on that myself. But yeah, obviously the origins of Christianity are deeply tied to Africa and West Asia, or also known as the Middle East. Like white people, I don't think were even really there until, I think there's aspects in the New Testament when you started to see apostles going to Italy, or starting to go to Europe to.
Well, you had the presence of Rome and the Roman territories, and you had Roman governors. Remember, Pilate was a Roman, and remember, Jesus was taken to a Roman court, and Pontius Pilate said, what has this man done that you want to put him to death? And Pontius Pilate was Roman, and there was plenty of Roman presence in the Middle East. You had Ptolemy in Egypt. So there was definitely a Roman presence. And when you look at the map, you know, when you look at a map and you look at the globe, most people don't understand how close Africa is to Italy and Portugal and Spain and all those places.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very short boat ride from Africa to those places that I just talked about.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. Now I do know Rome and it's because their territory was rather large, but they were a multiracial or multi-ethnic empire. They weren't just like one.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah. It
was definitely a multi-ethnic empire.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so I think I had another question. So why do you think Christian nationalism is becoming so popular today?
I would say it's becoming more popular because, and this is just my take on what I see. Over the last few years, or over the last decade, when Obama was elected, you had a whole bunch of people lose their minds.
Yeah.
The people that were racist became very racist, and people would like to say Obama was divisive or whatever, but Obama wasn't divisive. The people that didn't like Obama were divisive. I mean, Mitch McConnell, the first thing he said when Obama was elected, it's my goal to make him a one-term president. Not I will try to work with him. Not we have to look for common ground and do what's right for the American people. No, the contrary. It was my goal is to make him a one-term president. And then for the next 6 years after Obamacare, they voted, I forget how many times, to repeal something that was never going to be repealed while he was in office, because he was never going to sign it, and they never had a supermajority in both houses to override a veto. So for 6 years, these people that didn't like Obama spent our tax dollars running in circles trying to do something that they know they couldn't do.
Okay. So you're saying that you think Christian nationalism has risen somewhat as a result of that presidency?
It became more prevalent.
Okay.
After or became more visible after Obama was elected.
Okay. And do you think it at all could be connected to what do they call it now? The Great Replacement theory that I've heard being popularized. I think this commentator talks about the Browning of America. So you think it's all connected to that?
Yes.
Because Christian nationalism, I think you alluded to, it's connected deeply to white politics specifically. Christian nationalism, as far as I know, is not. This is not
no,
I
don't know. Yeah, I don't view Christian nationalism as connected to Black or people of color politics in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Because you may find some people of color aligning themselves with Christian nationalism, but Christian nationalism, as defined by Gerald Smith in 1944, excludes people that didn't look like him, because he specifically said, keep the blood pure. What blood was he taking? He was talking about his blood and white blood. He wasn't talking about keeping America blood pure, because in their eyes, we're not Americans.
Yeah. No,
you got to remember, we didn't get the birthright to become Americans until the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
Native Americans or indigenous people didn't get citizenship automatically at birth until the 1890s. So when they start talking about what's an American, they're not talking about us.
Yeah. I understand more so. I think more recently, as I'm starting to understand these concepts. I remember, I think it was, who is it that I read? I read the manifesto of one of the mass shooters. I can't think of his name, but I remember reading through the manifesto, and he was talking a lot about the great replacement theory. And that was the first time I started to understand the psychology of like them seeing basically non-white people as outsiders or perceiving them as un-American. I had never really fully understood it until I heard it from that perspective. I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, so. They view us as interlopers on their land, and it's not even their land, but they view us as interlopers in the country we helped build, or primarily our labor built this country in the 1800s during the Industrial Revolution. But they ignore the fact that, you know, it was us who put forth the blood, sweat, and tears to build the railroads along with the Chinese, and build roads and infrastructure that we all can take advantage of now. But they don't want to recognize that we are part of this country. I mean, when was growing up, I heard go back to Africa.
Yeah. Well, that was a movement too. I mean, I know that largely in.
But my family has been here since the 1700s.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Longer than probably their family has been here. But I should go back to Africa. Right. But that, you know, that's a common theme in the Great Replacement theory. It's Black people are going to replace you, or other people of color are going to replace you and take your job or take your place in society. You know, they view equality and equity for everybody else as a loss for them.
As a lot. Okay. Would you say this is connected to just this competitive system, capitalism? Because in capitalism, you have winners and losers. There is really no everyone's equal, right? You're going to have the haves and the have-nots. That's kind of the system set up. You
absolutely have winners and losers, and they assume, and here's where the we're losing because they're gaining comes from. It comes from the fact that for 100 years in America and some, we had apartheid. You didn't have to compete with the Black guy because they could just say, we don't want to hire the Black guy. You didn't have to compete for housing because, like Donald Trump did with Trump Enterprises, a C on the application meant that person was Black and you didn't rent to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a system where you're favored in the system because there, you know, no matter what anybody said, racism in America was systematic, it was endemic, it was sanctioned by the government, and you only need to look as far as our military, which was segregated, to understand that segregation was part of our government. It was in banking, it was everywhere. So when you start removing the segregation and everybody's got to play on the same playing field, those people that had an advantage feel like they're losing something because they don't get the pass just because they're white anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the Great Replacement theory comes from. Is you say that everybody is equal, but you don't want to play on an equal playing field.
What do you say to those? You have a few in the comments now who say that you're just complaining about racism and not focusing on solutions. This is things that, you know, this is debate.
I want to respond to this thing that said we've been obsessed and crying about racism for decades. Where has it gotten us? We as Black people are more concerned with being victims versus coming up with solutions. So here's the problem. We can't solve this problem. We didn't create racism in America. We can't solve racism in America. We have to work within the system we're given to get ahead as best we can. I'm not crying I'm not crying victim. I'm pointing out that how the system is flawed. Pointing out a flaw in the system does not make you a victim, and it does not make you cry victim. I have never said woe is me. When we started talking about me, I have 2 degrees in electrical engineering. I own my own house. I own my own business. I'm not a victim, and I'm not crying about people being racist. I'm glad that the white nationalists are showing who they are. I know who to stay away from now. Polite racists are more dangerous than the overt racists. The polite racist that smiles in your face and then goes and stabs you in the back is more dangerous than the guy who will tell you, I don't like you. And I don't like you because you're black. I'm cool with that. If you don't like me because I'm black, I know I need to stay away from you. So I just wanted to address that message that came across with us being obsessed and crying about racism. I'm not crying about it. I'm just pointing out that it exists for those people that say it doesn't.
Right. Or just who refuse. Well, and generally, I mean, when you talk to people, especially, non-Black folks who refuse to acknowledge it, where it's like, you're not going to want to acknowledge something that benefits you. So at a certain point, it's like, this is not a really genuine conversation. So you can just agree to disagree. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. It's what I said before. Until you call it what it was, you can't have an honest discussion about it.
Right. No, absolutely. Okay, so I did have a few other questions. So guys, also, if you're here, hit the like button. Also show support to the show if you like it. Cash App, Venmo, Shay Sade. And thank you, Hakeem. I did see the contribution come through on the super chat or on the Cash App. So I appreciate that. Okay, so a few other questions here. Okay, where'd it go? Okay, so would you say Christian nationalism, is this exclusively a conservative Republican ideology, or can you find this among different political beliefs or just political parties?
I haven't run across any libertarians that were Christian nationalists. I haven't, I haven't run across many Democrats and that have espoused Christian nationalism. And if you look at the people that are pushing it, that are in office, those people align themselves with the most fringe elements of the Republican Party. I'm not saying mainstream Republicans are calling themselves Christian nationalists. I'm saying the fringe is.
Okay.
Okay. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a mainstream Republican.
Okay.
Lauren Boebert is not a mainstream Republican. Or not what I would consider a mainstream Republican. I would call them fringes. So I would say Christian nationalism exists in probably the right, the far right 15%. But I do believe that there is a large number of them that don't call themselves Christian nationalists, but would like to impose whatever they call their Christian beliefs on everybody else.
Okay. So you're saying, so you believe there's people who aren't Christian nationalists, but still, you say try to force it? You think they try to force it for political reasons, or are you just saying for maybe other reasons?
I'm saying you have Christian people that call themselves Christian nationalists, and those people are very vocal. Those people will tell you they're Christian nationalists, and they'll tell you that this is, the survey you talked about. These people will say that, this is a Christian nation. But then you'll have the other ones that won't say that out loud, but their politics are conservative in a way where they want to, whatever beliefs they have that they call Christian, they want to pass those beliefs. Prayer in school is a good example. they say bring back prayer in school.
Yeah.
You know, and once again, the argument I have is what prayer? Because your brand of Christianity is not necessarily my brand of Christianity. So, you know, when they start throwing around the term Christian, what, you know, the first question you have to ask is, what does that mean? Because there are thousands of different sects of Christianity in the world. And you know, you have the snake charmers in Appalachia. They call themselves Christians.
I heard of that. I think
the snake handlers, what? You know, they say God will protect you. So you got snake handlers in Appalachia. You got, you know, Catholics. You got Southern Baptists. You got political evangelicals. All these people call themselves Christian. But what does it mean?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. People use the term Christian is rather, I think it's more political than anything else. In the West, at least, it has, I think, more of a political history than it has a spiritual or religious one. Even a lot of the religious ones are deeply connected to the politics of this empire. There's really no way to get around that. And I say it as a Christ follower, as someone who's, you know, been to Christian churches, things like that. So,
yeah, I prefer no politics in my religion and no religion in my politics.
Yeah. So you believe in keeping them separate. You believe in not personally and not mixing the two. That your spiritual beliefs can have no bearing on your political choices.
No. I believe that my politics don't influence my religion. And that's what I said. These people that are Christian nationalists, they want their politics, or they want their religion to reflect what their politics are. And as opposed to their politics reflecting their beliefs. Because I believe in ethics, I believe in do unto others, and my politics absolutely reflect my personal beliefs. I don't believe in cheating people. I believe we should help the poor. So my politics are definitely influenced by my religion.
Okay.
But my religion is not influenced by my politics.
Okay.
And Christian nationalists put their politics first and then try to guide their religious beliefs around what they politically believe.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so let me see. And now I've kind of pulled up a few. There's been a few different comments. There's a few people who think that you're still making excuses, but this is.
I'm making excuses for what? I think Black folks are. I think every Black person in America that's able to vote should be registered to vote. I believe education is the great equalizer. I never said that somebody was keeping us from being the best we can be. I didn't say that. Once again, pointing out racism and pointing out the injustices does not make you does not mean you're crying victim.
You know what I found in this space is that some people are uncomfortable with nuance, because two things can be true at once. You could have had racist experience in this nation and still be successful as yourself. You've had racist experiences, you've been discriminated against, and you're also very successful. So I've
been pulled over for driving while Black when I was younger and not so young. But that doesn't mean that I'm crying victim. If you're at a store and you get cheated out of $10, pointing out the fact that you got cheated out of $10 does not make you a victim. You're pointing out the injustice that the guy just cheated you out of $10 and you want your $10.
Right.
So pointing out that you got cheated does not make you a victim.
Right. No, 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 I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And I don't know sometimes if that's cognitive dissonance, if it's just unwillingness to want to learn, if it's trolls, if it's deflection, all the above, you know, it's just one of those things I noticed. Okay, so let me see. I think there's like one or two more questions I have. So okay, so in your opinion, is this a movement that needs to be combated, and if so, how?
Like all movements that define people and put people in categories or try to wrestle political power by voter suppression or gerrymandering, the best way to combat Christian nationalism is with education and with broad voter registration. I mean, the one thing that's true about these people is they don't want us to vote.
Interesting. Okay.
If they wanted us to vote, why would they spend so much time gerrymandering the vote? Why in Georgia do people have to wait in line for hours? Why do they pass laws where you can't hand out water bottles to the people in line in places like Texas? Why do they close precincts in the Black districts at a rate 2 to 3 times what they close them in white areas? And so how do we combat this? With education. Make people aware of what's going on. Tell people, you know, some people will actually believe when they say, the Constitution doesn't say anything about separation of church and state. This is a Christian nation. Well, that's just ignorant.
Yeah. As a Christian, I've never believed, I mean, like just as a Christian, based upon Christian principles, I'm like, nothing that this nation done foundationally is anything Christian. You genocide peoples, you enslave other people, then you like largely restrict, you know, others of your own ethnicity based upon land and property and wealth. Like those are not Christian principles. So just like on just from a basic overview, it's like no, and not and to your point earlier, the founding forefathers, I mean, they came out here to escape religious persecution. That was one of the reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can't say that, like honestly.
but when you deny history and you're ignorant of history, people can do all kinds of things to you when you don't know what your rights are and when you don't know what they've done before.
Right. No, that's true. And there is a huge one thing I can say honestly. I don't know if this is an internet thing, or if it's just an educational thing in general, or both. But there is a huge lack of understanding, especially as it comes to Black history. I mean, largely, first of all, you don't really hear about our history in schools. You just don't. Like, you kind of have to go. You have to really seek it out on your own.
And so the one thing I will say about Black history is American history. You cannot teach real American history if you don't include Black folks in the history you teach.
Mm-hmm.
How do you teach American history when you don't teach, you know, all the things and all the accomplishments of the people that did them? Because let's face it, white men didn't create everything. and quite frankly, white men in the 1800s, most of those inventions, the cotton gin, things like the ironing board, the iron, press and comb, that wasn't done by white men to make their lives easier. It was created by Black folks to make their lives easier.
Yeah, because they were the workforce. Yeah.
Because they were the ones doing the work. If you're not the one doing the work, it is difficult to see what inventions need to be made to make your work easier.
Right. No. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But you know, you don't like thinking back to some of my history classes. I mean, there are just entire like continents that were just not even included anywhere in the educational system. Like it was like I had to go. Both of my parents are educators, and so they would, you know, there was we were always learning something as a kind of result of my mom being a teacher, things like that. But it's like outside of that, I think how they even learned of certain things or even thought to ask certain questions, you know, it wasn't taught, it wasn't shown, I know it was usually only shown from a particular perspective, that which was presented to you. It's usually only shown from one perspective. You're not always allowed nuance. You're supposed to, but that's not the case. Even down to college now, you go to colleges and, you know, I talk to different different young men who are going in colleges and they feel silenced in their point of view. They feel like they can't give their honest expression because they feel if they go against any feminist ideology, they'll be canceled. So it's like, it's very closed. Even when you do talk about these different things, it's very closed.
But the one thing that's key is you can't overcome these obstacles that we are now facing without education. Because, and it's education in general. We have to be on, you know, that now they're throwing around the term critical race theory. Mm-hmm. Critical, and they say don't teach it in our schools. Well, critical race theory was never one of those things taught, and is not one of those things taught in K through 12.
Yeah. Right. I never heard of it. And when I was coming, I was in different AP classes and stuff. I never came up once.
That's because they've coined any talk about slavery, any talk about the history of racism in America, understanding the societal implications of what segregation, Jim Crow, and what impact those had. That's critical race theory to them because they say it's teaching their white kids to hate themselves.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. And that's where it's just like, look, having an honest conversation about what happened doesn't mean that it's teaching about hate. It's just acknowledging a fact. And now if you feel guilty about that, that's something you got to work out. But it's like, if this happened, it happened.
Yeah. And the goal of teaching people what happened is not necessarily to make people feel guilty. It's to educate them so we don't repeat those things that were done in the past.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, the great quote is those who don't learn or ignore history are destined to repeat it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've heard that before, and I think you already see that to a certain extent. Okay, well, I think you already asked this question, if we should use political engagement and voting to defeat or combat Christian nationalism, and you alluded to this where it's like they specifically don't want the Black vote, as is seen through these different gerrymandering practices that are still being implemented.
Absolutely, like I said, you know, people, a lot of Black people will say, well, my vote doesn't matter. Or a lot of people will say my vote doesn't matter. And if anything, the last election cycle should have taught you is every vote matters, because they were counting down to the last vote. You know, you had around here, I forget what city it was, where ultimately it was a tie. And they actually had to flip a coin or draw a name out of a hat to decide who was going to win, because it was a tie.
Mm. Wow, I didn't know that.
That was it was in the north. It was north of Berkeley. I forget what city it was.
Oh, okay.
Or you had, you know, a couple of districts down in the South Bay come down to you know, where they were doing recounts and it was under 300 votes, things like that. So anybody that says their vote doesn't matter is gravely mistaken, because once again, if your vote didn't matter, why would they try so hard to keep you from voting?
Fair point. Fair point. No, that's a really good question. Now, this is the last question I have for you. Is understanding the African roots of the Bible important to combat Christian nationalism?
I don't know if understanding the that will have any difference. I think understanding two things: understanding understanding true Christian doctrine, that you're supposed to love your brother, that you're supposed to treat everybody equally, and you're supposed to treat people fairly with equity, and understanding the principles in the Bible, and understanding what our Constitution defines as separation of church and state is what's important to combat Christian nationalism. I don't think that, well, first of all, Christian nationalists don't care what the roots of the Bible are, because they don't necessarily believe what the Bible says. Because if they believe what the Bible says, they wouldn't be Christian nationalists.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a fair point.
So you're not going to change them. So fundamentally, we have to realize that Christian nationalists are going to be who they are. So we're not going to change them. What we can do is vote to lessen their influence in politics at a local, regional, and national level. So how do you silence Christian nationalists? You get out and vote. You educate your kids. You educate everybody that you educate as widely as you can, and you vote. And you don't vote for them.
You're like pretty simple. Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
Yeah, I heard this is something that was being promoted a lot online over the last year. This idea of Black people removing the vote as a way to try to put pressure on politicians to move, whether it's for reparations or to try to move in favor of Black progress. I kind of heard that idea floating around. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I think not remove your vote, but pressure those people and let them know that just because they're not Republicans does not mean they automatically get your vote.
Yeah.
Because because a lot of people assume that Black folks aren't going to vote Republican, and by and large that is true. But don't take our vote for granted.
Yeah,
because especially at the local and the local, regional, and state level, because there are a lot of nonpartisan racists that we need to be aware of, and that we need to be looking to get our own candidates. You've seen white nationalists go after school boards, and school boards are supposed to be nonpartisan. But what we've seen is white nationalists go in and do their best, and especially in conservative areas, to stack the school boards. And what we should be doing is we should be running our own candidates. And in largely minority areas, we should be looking at qualified candidates and putting our people in so that we can affect change. Because one thing is true: your day-to-day life is not affected by the federal government. Long-term, you're affected by the federal government, but your day-to-day life is affected by local and regional politics.
Yeah.
How much money we spend on education versus how much we spend on transportation versus what we spend on other infrastructure. Those things are affected at a local and regional level. And we need to make things that we think are important higher on the list of things to do. And the only way we can do that is to run our own candidates.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Then that also would require political understanding and education. Going back to your point, education and spreading awareness of these different things. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of understanding, I think, in some of these different ideas. And that's why, you know, when I look at some of the conversations that are popular, especially in the Black space, it can get really, sometimes I think a lot of them can be distractions, because you'll see things about people bickering about relationships back and forth, or what celebrities are doing, or what celebrities are saying and wearing, and it's like, meanwhile your day-to-day life is being impacted. Meanwhile, people are organizing and building alliances to try to make your life more difficult, and nobody's talking about it. I mean, even this live, like, you know, we're having a conversation, but these kinds of topics don't get as many views, although they're so much more important than when I talk about, I don't know, the passport bros, or when I talk about what a baby mama said. But that's the stuff that's what the stuff Black folks want to hear. We sit here and talk about, okay, politics and the different way people are organizing history, this day-to-day life, then you don't get the views, you don't get the support. But that's what's needed to actually try to change things for the better.
And that's what's, you know, that is what's important, because like you said, what some star wore down the red carpet, or what somebody, you know, or what the latest gossip is on somebody's baby's mama, and that's irrelevant.
Right.
Because that's not going to affect your life when you wake up in the morning.
Right. But that's what gets the views. And, you know, it's such a, since really being in the space, it's so interesting for me to see the things that really get traction versus those things that don't. But nevertheless, I think these conversations are important, whether or not it gets a ton of user support or not. I think it's important to have the information out there, especially for those who do want to learn, because whether or not we decide to engage or not, it is happening. You know,
and it starts with a few, and you have to have some people engaged, however many people that is, so that they can go and talk about it and engage more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I could not agree.
Because topics like this are definitely important, and they're important to Black folks, but this topic is important to everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody, you know, if you want to live in a country that's not like, you know, Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan or one of the other theocracies, if you or like Iran, if you want to live in a free country, then this topic is important, because Christian nationalists want a theocracy. Mm. And they don't want to govern. And there's a difference between governance and ruling.
Wait, you said there's a difference between governance and ruling. Can you help break that down?
Governance requires compromise.
Okay.
And governance requires agreement from those being governed. Ruling does not require compromise or agreement from the people that you are ruling.
Okay.
And these people want to rule. Make no mistake, these people want to rule. They don't want to govern. They don't want to compromise, because for them, it's their way or the highway.
Interesting. Yeah, like I said, from some of the different stuff that I've read and heard about it, it's like, and you know, it's interesting because on the optics, or on just standalone, you're thinking, yeah, like as a Christ follower, and even, you know, one of the things that I hear is like them going against the woke agenda. Look, I don't agree sometimes with how I think the LGBTQ agenda. I think sometimes it's just forced. Sometimes I think it's to the point where it's just like, hey, it's just being overdone. Like, you know, when you have more traditional family values, it's like, yeah, I don't want to necessarily see these things being pushed in ways that I think go against my values, or pushed especially on young kids. And so you can very much be in agreement with maybe some of the different pushback that they think is happening, especially for the young kids, but then just mixing with all this other stuff. So so one of the things
Christian nationalists like to say is, I'm being silenced for my Christian beliefs. And we need to be careful because, like you said, there are a lot of people that have different beliefs, and it's only dangerous if they use what they believe to oppress others. I can have my beliefs about what I think marriage is, let's say.
Yeah.
And as long as I respect the law of the land and don't treat people differently, my belief can be my belief.
Yeah.
But it becomes dangerous on when both sides want to enforce their beliefs on each other.
Yeah, and yeah,
and yeah, they want a white country, absolutely.
I think that's pretty clear. I'm starting to see more. You're seeing more people be honest
because they want to exclude us from society. They want to exclude all people of color. And if you don't look like them, act like them, think like them, they don't believe you should be with them.
Aren't they already? I heard that they're trying to create, or there's been this movement to try to create an ethno state. I think out near like Montana. What is it? I think it's like Montana, and there's like a couple of states, Idaho, maybe outside of Idaho. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's this like movement to essentially want to create an area that would be all right.
There are parts of is it Oregon that have been trying to secede from Oregon, and one part of California has been trying to secede.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yes,
for decades.
Yes. I'm aware of that,
and that's not going to happen. If they want to go into the middle of Montana and they want to buy up a bunch of land and become their ethno-xenophobic, only white folks state, just post signs and I'll make sure I don't go there.
Yeah, right.
Just make sure you clearly mark it so I don't go. Oh yeah, it was Logic 1611. Yeah, it was Oregon that was trying to secede. Part of Oregon that was trying to secede.
I know California. I've been to that part of the California where they've tried to succeed multiple times, and it definitely has. I mean, really, once you get outside of the Bay Area, like the culture completely changes. People have this idea that all of California is just this liberal. Everybody's walking around holding hands.
Once you get to California Central Valley, then if you head east,
yes,
at the right place, you could go through multiple states and never hit blue.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even in California, there's a lot of
California Central Valley is definitely an interesting place. A lot of people don't realize that even though California was West, and we talk about how liberal California is, California, even in the Bay Area, California has not always been liberal. We had sundown towns in California. Dublin, Castro Valley, once you get into over the Dublin grade into the Livermore Valley, that was all sundown towns. If you were Black, you didn't want to be caught there after dark.
I know. I heard in Pleasanton, which is next to Dublin, they were saying that they had the same thing for Chinese. They didn't allow them out past a certain time, and so Chinese actually had to build their own systems underground as a way to do business after dark. But
in San Leandro City Charter, said you couldn't rent or sell to Negroes or Mongoloids. That was in the city charter.
Yep, sounds about right.
So up until the late 70s, early 80s, San Leandro was still 95% white.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that. Yeah.
Castro Valley in Dublin used to have a Klan parade.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that's not surprising.
They used to call San Leandro Clan Leandro.
Oh, really? Oh, that must be a little bit before my time. I wasn't
I'm older than you, and I've lived in the Bay Area my whole life.
Your whole life, okay. Yeah, yeah, my family's from the Bay Area, but I don't remember that, but I'll have to ask.
Oh, yeah. San Leandro was Clan Leandro. You didn't want to get caught in San Leandro after dark, not unless you had a specific place to go.
Yeah. Sunny California. That's what it is. Well, real quick, I did want to acknowledge, thank you, Dessalines. I really hope I didn't butcher that. I feel like I did, but thank you for the 20 on the super chat. And thank you so much for Larky. You're always showing support. It says, on the issue of Christianity and its church, how about we put a little something in the collection pot for our faith content creators? Come on, folks, we would be watching mainstream television.
Amen. That's right.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. Yeah, so no, this has been great. I mean, I think you've dropped some good basic information around this whole idea. I know some of you guys kind of caught on late and you're asking what's Christian nationalism. You can go back and rewind and catch it, because he's kind of shared a lot of information. But really, to make a long story short, what you're saying at the end of the day, the best way to make sure that you're being represented and that your issues are being represented is to actually make sure that you vote. And if your vote wasn't important, then there wouldn't be all these different sideways laws being passed and different things being done to try to limit your vote. So make sure that you are doing that. Is there anything else that you would like to mention or bring up just regarding this whole topic that we haven't touched upon yet?
I don't know. We've touched on a lot of things on this topic. Mm-hmm. I would just say that, don't be gaslit by these people. These people are they definitely have an agenda, and their agenda is control, and you are excluded from whatever dialogue they have, because they don't regard you as a person, and you're not part of what they view as an American future, because they want a different America than we want.
Yeah, they want a different America, and I think that it's clear. That's the clear point. They want a different America, and you're not a part of that.
No, we're not a part of their view of what America should be or could be with them in charge. And how do we make sure that doesn't happen? We got to vote and make sure they don't get in charge.
Now, have you ever heard any Christian nationalists dance around that? Because honestly, I've read some of the different mainstream articles I've read, which have been in favor of Christian nationalism, or they're like, no, you should be patriotic. This is not bad. This is, they won't really talk about some of these more negative components. So have you seen people kind of dance around some of the racial tones that are connected with?
Oh yeah, they dance around it all the time.
Okay.
they dance. Lauren Boebert says, I'm not a racist. Marjorie Taylor Greene says, I'm not a racist. All of them that are in politics call themselves Christian nationalists. They either they're one of two things are true. Either they're truly ignorant and don't understand what Christian nationalists, what the term really means, or they're hoping you're ignorant enough to believe that they're not racist when they say it.
And would you say, again, the core reason that Christian nationalism is exclusively tied to white identity politics is because of its origin? Or you're saying okay.
It's not only the origins, but fundamentally it's the origins. And then if you look at the people that are calling themselves Christian nationalists and how they behave and what they believe, then But a lot of it has to do with the origins. The origins of the term are separatists, they're racist, and they're non-inclusive of people of color. So it's like the Confederate flag. People say, oh, it's a symbol of my heritage. Then your heritage is racism.
Okay, okay, that's what you're saying,
because,
because these people who are claiming it today, they're not challenging. It's not like they're challenging those xenophobic, racist ideology. They're not challenging any of that stuff. They're just kind of running with it, and then just saying, "Oh, it's not that bad."
Right.
So,
They say no. It's Christian and patriotic, but if you go look deeper, you'll know that it's neither Christian nor patriotic.
yeah. Okay.
But like I said, so the people that use that term are either ignorant of its origins, which I doubt, but they're hoping you're too ignorant to understand what they're saying.
Yeah. Okay. No. That makes sense. No, that makes sense. Well, this has been a great conversation. For those of you guys who missed it, it'll be up. You can go back and watch, rewind, all that stuff. And is there anything else you would like to add for the audience or for the listeners before we close this thing out?
Yeah, if you're not registered to vote and you're 18, you need to go register to vote. And not just register, go vote when it's time.
Well, yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And instead of watching The Bachelor or some other reality TV, go pick up a book. Go pick up a book.
You know, where's that saying out there that black men don't read? I don't know if you've heard that one. That's something floating around, at least not in the
not in my house.
Yeah. My husband is an avid reader, and he always reads books that I don't always.
I read any and everything that's either on a coffee table.
Yeah.
You know, I will search out books to read. If you recommend the book, I'll go check it out. My mother, when I was growing up, we had bookshelves from floor to ceiling full of books, and nothing was off limits. If it was in the house, it was readable by everybody.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, I think that's the way to go. I know some people in the comments saying it's sad we don't read, but we got to change that. Well, hopefully this inspires some of y'all to go out there and read. Shout out to you, Biohammer TV, with the $4.99 with the super sticker. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. I'm trying to think if we got anything else. Okay, guys, yeah, go out, register, vote when it's time. And thank you for this conversation. This was good. This was fun. You're welcome back anytime. And yeah, I'm sure not everyone's going to agree, but if nothing else, you now know what this is about. You can do your own research. You can read and see if maybe after you read, you have a change of heart. But nevertheless, these are the kinds of conversations that are important to have in lieu of all the other trending topics that are going around on social media, and especially in Black America. We want to make sure that we are still educating ourselves and others so that our issues are being addressed.
Well, I'd love to come back and talk about black people in technology.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Anytime, that'd be great. I think we need to have some more of those uplifting conversations that you don't really hear enough about that. So yeah, we can schedule some time. That'd be fun.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And yeah, this is fun. I'm sure we'll be in contact. All right. Well, you have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. Bye. All right, guys. So that was fun, or at least informative. As I mentioned, if you missed things, that's fine. You can go back and rewind, catch the replay. These conversations, I know, are not always the most trending or popping or whatever you want to call it, but they are really important, because whether or not we are aware of it, this is what's going on. This is how people are organizing. These are the agendas that are going on. And I think it's incredibly important that we at least have the awareness. And again, let other people know, we educate ourselves so that we are moving accordingly and making sure that our needs are being addressed and met. So be sure to like, subscribe, share this with someone that you think may find this interesting. And even if you don't agree, at least go do your own research. Find out what it's about yourself. read, do your own research, and come to your own conclusions. But I am glad that we were able to have this conversation, and hopefully you found this helpful, and we will definitely have more conversations like this and be in contact. So yeah, I think that's what I got for tonight, guys. And this was a later live, but he had busy schedule. This is the only time we could get him on. So I appreciate you guys joining me tonight on a time that I usually don't do it. And stay tuned for other upcoming content. Be sure to subscribe or hit the notification bell if you haven't already, so that you are notified each time I go live. And I'm trying to think. I think that's all I got for now. Okay, guys. Thank you, and we'll talk later. Okay, bye.